Welcome back. Here with us on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. And tonight we want to talk to you about the state of Indian economy. Now, there are signs of recovery, but then there is a concern around inflation as well. Top sources in the government have told us that what is being seen in the country, the impact of inflation and inflation per se, is because of the external factors. It's not really a result of economic mismanagement by the government. Top government sources are of the view that if we need to fight inflation, then we have to find a solution with the world. Top sources debunking this economic mismanagement charge of the opposition, saying that inflation is a global worry and external factors are hurting the economy. India is not the only country that is suffering right now. It is, in fact, a global phenomena. Remember, just a few days ago, the government has reduced excise duty on petrol as well as diesel, and there has been a sharp cut that was done because of the surge in petrol and diesel prices that we had seen, which were in fact impacting the middle class significantly, and which was impacting their monthly budget as well. And now on state of the economy, the government sources suggest that private investment sentiment appears to be quite robust. The economic mismanagement charge has been debunked. That's the story that we are tracking for you at this point in time. And we will be going across to Professor Arvind Pangariya, top economist and former Vice Chairman NITI Aayog, to discuss the state of inflation and whether what the government has done is enough or not. In fact, recently, inflation level we had seen rising to an all-time high. As far as the wholesale inflation is concerned, wholesale inflation crossed 15% mark, and the retail inflation has remained above the comfort level of Reserve Bank of India, following which we have seen Reserve Bank of India also increasing the repo rate. Now, that is leading to increase in interest rates as well. For us, we have seen banks passing on that to the consumers. Our EMIs have become expensive. So what is it that the government can really do more is something that we will be now focusing on. And government sources have said that as far as inflation is concerned, it is a global phenomena. And even as we try and reconnect with Mr. Arvind Pangariya, let's take a very, very quick break. We'll be back with more on this. Stay with us.
तू ना इंटरनेशनल लेवल का साइकिलिस्ट बनेगा,
पर मुझे तो डॉक्टर बनना है।
तो ट्यूशन के चक्कर में साइकिलिंग की प्रैक्टिस क्यों कर रहा है? अब घर बैठे एड्योरा पे इंडिया के टॉप टीचर से सारे सब्जेक्ट्स पढ़। डाउनलोड द एड्योरा ऐप नाउ या Z5 सब्सक्राइब करो और 3 मंथ्स का फ्री एड्योरा ट्रायल पाओ।
माल पूरा है?
हाँ सर।
मम्मी चेक कर लो।
पूरा है।
पापा टाइम पे
है। अपोलो से है सर।
थैंक्स। हाँ, पापा के बीपी का इशू है, so every medicine has to be on time.
हेल्थ के मामले में श्योर रहना जरूरी है, इसीलिए पाएं अपनी पूरी प्रिस्क्रिप्शन की डिलीवरी सिर्फ 2 घंटे में डायरेक्ट अपोलो से। डाउनलोड अपोलो 24/7 नाउ।
Presenting the new voices of Mirror Now, here to fight for you, to ask tough questions, to put your interests first, and to make authorities realize that urban lives matter. India's new people, champions. Mirror Now, you first.
You give freebies because they assure votes. But after you come to power, what about supplying basics to the people of the national capital? People in Delhi every year suffer because of the same problem. A couple of days ago, a 45-year-old woman was stabbed to death because of water crisis, and that too in South Delhi.
There is a lot of new that's awaiting you at Mirror Now. News that is bolder, shows that are sharper. New people, champions who always put your issues first. Mirror Now, you first.
Why do we always have to wait for things to get better? When it comes to power crisis, we are hoping and praying monsoon rain will come soon and we'll get some relief. If there is a coal crisis, we are hoping and praying that, automatically the demand will go down when the rains will come and things will get better. For how long will this attitude really continue?
Presenting the new voices of Mirror Now, here to fight for you, to ask tough questions, to put your interests first, and to make authorities realize that
Welcome back. Here with us on Urban Debate on Mirror Now, and joining us live on the broadcast this evening is Professor Arvind Pangariya, top economist and former Vice Chairman NITI Aayog. Sir, thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, though there were some technical glitches initially, but now all is sorted. I want to first ask you, like I ask you all the time, if in one word you have to describe the state of the economy today, what will you say?
No, this cannot be described in one word. I think we are, I've been generally optimistic on the economy and I remain so. There is no reason for me to change my mind. We can discuss the details, but I think, all the reforms are still in place. Macroeconomically, we remain stable. And so therefore, there is no reason for me to turn pessimistic.
Okay, you're optimistic. We are also optimistic. In fact, top government sources have, in a way, debunked this economic mismanagement charge also, and have tried to suggest that as far as inflation is concerned, it's a global issue, and what the government has done will definitely bring relief. Recently, we saw sharp cuts in excise duty on petrol and diesel. Is that enough to tame inflation?
First of all, I have no idea, when critics are saying mismanagement, what mismanagement are they referring to? I have no idea. I think the economy has been managed well, and given that almost all of this inflation is originating in external factors, and virtually every country, except some rare, there's some rare exceptions like Japan or so, but every other country is actually having inflation. So, and ours is not exorbitant. If you think our target goes up to 6 and we are at 7.8. If I look at the United States, the target is 2% and the actual inflation is 8.3%. And mind you that even this 7.8 and before that 7 or so is only 2 months. So, if you annualize and take a full month, a full year, we are not that far away from the target. Now, in terms of actions, what has been done is good. I think, obviously, certainly the Reserve Bank of India is not going to stop where it is today. In fact, the RBI governor gave an interview a couple of days ago to one of the channels, and he was very clear that more action will come. And that's certainly required because the real interest rates, once you correct the nominal interest rates for inflation, are still in the negative territory. So there is scope for further increase in the interest rates, and that I think does need to be done. From my point of view, I'll be absolutely delighted if the government would also cut custom duties yet more. Because I just see that cutting custom duties is a good thing for the economy in general. That ought to be our policy. But today, the inflation actually provides an opportunity to do that.
Okay. That is an important point you are raising. But I want to also ask you one more thing as far as inflation management is concerned in the country. Now, when the government is of the view, via sources, this is what we are learning, that the problem is global and, the solution also has to be global. So can there be something more that the government should look at right now to deal with inflation? You're saying it isn't too high, but it's pinching the middle class budget in a very, very bad way. I mean, 15% plus wholesale inflation, 7.79% is the retail inflation. Prices, be it the air tickets or the groceries that we are buying, are at an all-time high in the country.
Yeah, no, let us not confuse. Wholesale inflation is a separate issue. That is not the consumer price index. So when you refer to the middle class, I think it is the CPI, the consumer price index, on which you need to focus. And sure enough, the prices have risen, and there is no. I totally identify with it, because we in the United States are facing it too. I mean, we do also grocery. We go for our grocery shopping, and the prices are rising, and they do pinch. There is no doubt. But precisely there, actually, therefore, the government action has been aimed at the middle class by cutting the custom duties, and most importantly, the petrol and diesel prices. So those things should help. Now, in terms of what more can the government do, as I've said, the RBI will have to continue on the path that it is currently. But at the same time, the government could cut custom duties further. Now, remember that again, given the fact that the origin of inflation is outside, external, this is coming from the traded goods, any reductions in the prices of the traded goods will help. And so, knocking down custom duties, not just on raw materials, but also on consumer goods. There's no reason why we should not actually knock down, duties on consumer goods. So that could also be done. But having said that, remember that, some of the key prices like oil, that has risen unless the crude oil prices come down. The scope for the central government to, further reduce these prices is almost not there, for the simple reason that ultimately, how much hit can the government revenues can take? If they take too big a hit, then you get into issues of, what expenditures do you cut? Correspondingly, if the government's income drops, its expenditures will have to drop, and that sort of can cut into the safety nets that are for the poor.
Okay. And sir, I would also like you to address the issue of rupee devaluation. Where is it headed in your opinion, and what should we be now prepared for?
Yeah, well, I think the RBI governor, again, in his interview, seemed to say that, their policy is to cut out the fluctuations in the exchange rate, and they're not looking for any specific target. So he's been very clear in his interview on that. And I think that has been our long-standing policy. So I'll go with that. Personally, I'm not too opposed to having some bit of depreciation. So, remember there are two things are happening. One is the direct price effect through the various commodity prices rising in the world markets. But the other phenomenon that has been happening is the rise in the interest rates in the United States, which is attracting capital back from all the countries into the United States, into the US debt market. And that, of course, puts pressure on the currencies of the country. So in our case, it's the rupee that, as dollar kind of leaves the country, returning back to the United States, at least to some degree, it puts pressure on the rupee to depreciate. And the only way to kind of counter that pressure is for the Reserve Bank of India to start selling dollars from its foreign exchange reserves, which it has been doing. But I think, it will have to, basically seek a balance between some decline in the value of the rupee, some depreciation, and some use of the foreign exchange reserves that we have accumulated over the last several years.
All right, Mr. Pangariya, I have very little time left on the show. One last question before we let you go. When it comes to rate hike by RBI, what is it that you are expecting? 40 basis points has already happened. How much more are you expecting in this calendar year itself?
Yeah. This is hard to say. Perhaps we might get another 40 basis points, but I have no real basis to kind of make that kind of prediction. So I just want to be cautious. But the scope is there.
How
that's
much
all I can
should
say
be there?
because. If I'm on the MPC, I'll probably take another 40 basis points. Only because when you do very small little things about 10 or 15 or 20 or even 25 basis points, markets don't register a whole lot. And so when they did 40 basis points, markets took notice. And I think one more rather than do baby steps, I think one more 40 basis points is what I would do if I was on the MPC. But I'm not on the MPC. It is the MPC which will have to take the call.
All right, Mr. Pangariya, thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. It's always a pleasure to have you, of course. Today we had very little time. Maybe next time we'll be able to discuss many more issues that are important for the economy. But thank you for joining us on such a short notice this evening. With this, it's a wrap.
My pleasure,
Thank you for
Heena.
staying with us on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. Heading into a short break. Thank you, sir. Why not act now for a better tomorrow? ऐसा क्यों है कि जब आग लगती है तभी सबको बाल्टी उठानी पड़ती है, लेकिन उससे पहले nobody wants to prepare so that this does not happen.